welcome everyone for coming. So yeah, really this was about, so we've seen some sort of issues, I guess, coming up around how we use Git, sometimes causing issues with some of our repositories and tracking changes and things. So I thought I'd go through some of the, how we should maybe be using Git. If anyone's got any other ideas, shout out. If you've got any questions as we go along, just shout out. So I'll begin. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to assume that people have sort of a basic understanding of Git, at least, of how it works and some of its commands. I have some Git aliases set up on my Mac. I'll show you the file I've got set up. So if I do use any, not sure what they are, just shout at me and I'll explain what it's doing. And yeah, I'm going to use the command line for all of my Git commands rather than source tree or anything like that. So if I quickly show you this. So this is it's publicly available. This, I can send out the links to it if anyone wants it. So the basic ones I use. So I've got Git LG, which will give me a nice sort of tree view of all the Git commits. And then the other ones that I like, Git CI is just Git commit, CO is checkout. I think it's probably about the only ones I'm going to use in this. Oh, ST is also status. It just saves a bit of time basically as I'm typing. That's about it. So if we move on to the next slide. So the first thing is really sort of our message formats. I know a lot of people seem to follow this sort of style, which is good. It makes it a lot easier to sort of get some high level information, I suppose, on what each commit is doing. And also adding in the Jira ticket on the end will help track it through Jira. So Jira will show you how many commits that ticket number has got, how many branches it's got, and things like that, which just makes it easier to track sort of the work that's being done on that ticket. And the other thing really that isn't mentioned here, but I think commit messages should be sort of as small as possible. If you're writing a paragraph commit message, and it probably suggests that your commit should be smaller. You're trying to do too much in one commit. So like you see there's a couple of the type sort of gives you the overall view of what you're doing in that change, whether it's a new feature, a bug fix, whether it's just like some styling, some refactoring or whatever, or a chore.
So everything touching the engine's a chore, isn't it, really?
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that the agreement on how we should do the commit messages?
Well, like I say, this is sort of what I think we should be doing.
Okay.
So if anyone else has any other ideas on what could maybe be better.
I'm definitely not using this at the minute, but that looks quite good.
I think, because if everyone starts using it, then it becomes a lot easier to, everyone's on the same page then to sort of see what's going on and what's happening.
So you mentioned about commit message should be as short as possible.
Yes.
Occasionally you want to have a little bit of supplementary information, like reasons, whatever. So Git commits are multi-line, so what I will often do is have a short description at the top, and then if I want to put additional information that doesn't make sense in your normal tree, you do it as
exactly. Yes,
you can. And then you can see it if you need to, but the summary is usually sufficient to
exactly.
to understand most things.
Yeah. There's also tools that can turn this style of commit message into a decently formatted changelog. So.
I think the open source convention is you have one line that's a short description of the change and then a new line and then you put a bigger description.
If you do need to do a long description of what it is, then you can do a multi-line.
Like I say, you should avoid it.
It's sort of, sometimes it can suggest that you're trying to do too much in one commit. So it's just something to watch out for, really. So this is the major one that's sort of come up that's causing lots of duplicate commits is the main issue, really. So I know a lot of people use git pull whenever they're trying to get down the most recent branch or the most recent updates to a branch. So the other thing you can use is a git fetch, as it's called. So fetch, as it says there, it'll only update your remote branches and it won't change your working copy at all, which then allows you to decide the best thing to do. So pull by default will do a fetch and then do a merge for you on the branch that you're on or the one that you specify. So that's obviously changing your working copy without you asking it to, in a way, or knowing it. You don't know exactly what Git's going to decide to do as to how to merge it. So I've got into the habit of using a fetch, which will just show me what's changed, and then I can decide whether it's best to do a rebase or a merge, or you need to do some of the work around it. So yeah, as it says there, pull, you can sort of get some unintended side effects. So you get non-linearities in history, which is where it's doing merges like further up the tree. You'll get a massive sort of branch out, and then it merges back in. You can reintroduce rebased out commits. So if someone else has done a rebase, which has taken out some commits, you've still got these old commits, and you do a git pull, you're going to bring those commits back into that branch that they've rebased out. As I said earlier, it modifies your working directory unpredictably, so you don't know exactly what it's going to do, because you don't know what the upstream changes are. You don't know what Git's going to have to do to resolve the merge for you, basically. And you can also resurrect deleted branches. So if you've got a branch that's been deleted on the upstream and do a git pull, you're going to resurrect that branch, essentially, which isn't good. Does everyone understand what sort of I mean by saying remote branches and local branches? Know the difference? Yeah? Cool. So I've got an example of what can happen. So there's a system called Magento 2, which is an e-commerce platform, and they use solely, so they get pull requests in because it's open source, and they solely use GitHub to manage all their merges and everything with no rebases. So what you can end up with is a tree that just gets a bit out of hand and becomes almost, how you're meant to follow the changes that are going on within that is impossible, really. So all those lines are branches that are being merged in further up, and because their pull requests hang around for potentially months, when it comes to getting merged in, it's got hundreds of commits that it's got to merge in ahead of, so the tree just becomes unreadable. And it's something that we've had issues with, because we have to, in our team at least, we have to know what changes are going into the next release so we can inform the client. So to do that, we have to follow back the Git tree. I mean, we've sort of improved it a little bit using Jira, but if you have to try and read the Git tree to see which tickets have been merged in since your last release, and if the tree ends up looking like this, it just becomes impossible to do. So yeah, that's just an example of what can sort of happen. So moving on to sort of a demo. So this is just a demo repository that I've created. So the remote for this is on my machine as well. So the remote for it is just another folder on my machine, which is here. So this would be, in our terms, sort of our Bitbucket repo. And this is our local working copy of it. As you can see here, I've got my remote branch of Origin feature and remote branch of Origin master, and my local branches feature and master. So to sort of simulate someone pushing a change out to the repository, I'm on the feature branch. So if I rebase this onto master and do git lg, well, it wasn't checked out. Excuse me. There's a couple of demos here, but they're probably going to, they're not going to go massively smoothly. So git branch f there just forces the feature branch up to where I am, because I wasn't checked out in feature when I did a rebase. I should have checked. So all that's done is taken my feature commits and put them on top of master. So before, feature didn't have master commit 1, but now I've put it on top, so it goes initial commit, master commit 1, feature commit 1 and 2. So if I go back here, I'm on the feature branch and I don't have those changes yet. So if I do git pull, so I want to do git pull from origin, and I want to pull in the feature branch. So it's doing a merge for me. So yeah, that's fine, I want it to merge. But now if I look, I've ended up with these feature commits coming up twice, because I've got the ones I originally had, and then the ones that are rebased on top of master. So if this, with this, in this example, it's only sort of 2 commits, but if, you've got 30 commits on a branch and you get something like this, then you're duplicating 30 commits, and then if you keep doing it, you can end up just duplicating it over and over again. Whereas if you do fetch in this instance, you'll see that someone's already rebased your feature branch. So you can then just check out to feature, or if you've got additional changes, just rebase your changes on top of where they've rebased origin feature, if that makes sense. Makes sense for everyone? Cool. So, I mean, yeah, in my opinion, we should be using fetch so you've got a bit more control over what's actually happening. I don't know what people think about that.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, 'cause I know a lot of people use git pull.
I think you need to be clear you need to understand what's going to happen when you do this. Fetch gives you that chance to look and review that.
Yeah,
I often use
definitely.
git pull if I know I want to take in exactly what's going there, but like you say, you got to make sure that you don't screw up your history.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean this
So
becomes.
I wouldn't do it if you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, if you're the only person working on a branch or you're on master, I'd say it's relatively safe. But if you've got multiple people working on a branch, that's when problems start to arise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not in the monitoring phase.
So you're using the rebase quite often then?
Yeah, so
You're
I
happy to
generally
do
go
so.
for rebases.
But only on your future branches, right?
Yeah. So it sort of helps in a linear history.
Yeah.
So it makes it easy. So if you've got master sort of going up the left, if you like, and then your feature branches come off and go back in, all in one sort of line. It makes it a lot easier to follow. Whereas if you've got loads of branches coming off and merging in, and because what you can do instead of rebasing, you could merge, but then I think it confuses the Git tree, a lot of the history of it. A lot of sort of Git purists will say you should never rebase because I'll go on to it in a second, but it creates copies of the commits. It doesn't move your commits, it copies them. So you're creating new commits for the rebase instead of keeping the original ones. Yeah, essentially. So yeah, a lot of people say that's bad because you're rewriting history in a way. But I would prefer the Git tree to look nicer and be easier to use than, just. So going on to rebase. So as I just said, it will reapply your commits on top of another base tip. It doesn't move them; it creates copies of them. But it allows you to resolve merge conflicts when they occur.
Don't you get duplicate commit messages or duplicate commits with rebase?
No, it literally delete the old commits and reapply your changes.
It doesn't delete them because. So I've got a feature branch with commit 1 and 2 on it, and I rebase that on top of master. These original commits are still there, but because there's no branch referencing them, when you look in the tree, they don't appear. They are still there technically. You could check them out if you've kept the hash. You can still check them out, but you just don't see them essentially.
So it doesn't update Git tree.
No, you can't delete old commits. Really, they're always going to be there. I mean, there are
I
certain
think they get
circumstances when you can,
leaked
but
after a period of time, but that's never really going to be an issue for anyone.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
it's
idea,
usually
really.
around 2 months. I'll go on to it later on, but there's a thing called reflog. It keeps a log of all your actions you've done in your Git repository.
Okay.
For purposes of concept, the rebase will relabel your old commits and put them in the new branch ahead of all the other commits you've got in there.
Okay.
So as I was saying, you can resolve merge conflicts as they appear, which is sort of another reason to have small commits. Because if you've got a huge commit that then has a merge conflict in it, and someone else has done a huge commit that you're getting that conflict with, it's going to be so confusing to go through and try and resolve all those conflicts. Whereas if you do small commits, it's only ever going to be a small conflict that you're coming up against. It also allows you to do an interactive rebase, which is one of the ways you can get rid of duplicate commits. You can rebase it, but decide what you want to do with each commit. So your duplicate ones, you can just drop them and you'll just ignore them on the rebase. Essentially. So it allows you a bit more control if you need it with an interactive rebase. So if I go to rebase, so I have my feature branch, which is merged off master from the initial commit. All these are essentially doing, so in my commit I've set a 1 in the text file, and in this commit I've set it to 12 but also added some new lines. So if I do git rebase master, so I've got a merge conflict now. So if you do git status, you'll see that they're both changed feature.txt, and git can't resolve it for us, so we have to go in and resolve it. But if we look at the state of the tree at the minute, you can see my head is now at master, so git's checked out master for me. So if I was to run git checkout theirs, feature.text. What do people think that's going to do?
Put in the one from the
On
branch.
the feature branch.
So you think the text file is going to have the number 1 in it?
Possibly. I don't know. I've never done this. Or no. Okay. So
Master.
if there's in the context, not the branch you're working on, it's master because you're now rebasing as master.
Well, I'm checked out on
But
master.
you said the head's master, so it must be the feature branch. Right?
Yeah.
That's why I went that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I now look at feature.text?
He hesitated, so I doesn't know how to yeah.
So feature.text now has So I mean, you can do git checkout -- theirs or ours, but you've got to remember, although you are on feature branch when you rebased, git checks out onto master so you can start applying your commits. So ours is your master branch and theirs is the feature branch. So you can use this if you know that you want whatever's on their branch and you don't care what was on your branch. You can just check out theirs rather than having to manually go in and resolve that conflict.
And then with Visual Studio Code, you get.
It's cheating. So if I abort this, I'll quickly show you the interactive rebase. So you can see so all this, the commit is going to take out.
Be all of the commits.
So that is the commit is going to try and reapply onto master, and you'll get a long list of all the commit it's going to do if there's more than one. And it gives you down here the commands that you can tell it to do. So in this instance, the default is to use the commit, but you can also edit the commit message, stop it from amending, squash it, or drop it. So drop would be what you use to get rid of duplicate commits if you need to. You can just drop all the duplicate ones. So in this case, I can tell it to drop this. And because I dropped it and that was the only commit on that branch, it's, and now feature.text is going to have 12 in it. So I've told it to just essentially ignore that commit. What you can also get, so if I edit this, so now I have now an unstaged commit in my Git repo. If I try and rebase, I don't know whether they're all. Yeah, so it won't let me because I have unstaged changes. Does everyone know about git stash? Does everyone use git stash?
Mm.
Yeah? No? So you can use git stash, so any of my unstaged changes, it will just put into a temporary branch, effectively. Which then means my working tree is clean. Which will then allow me to do my rebase. I mean, in this instance, I'm not got no commits to rebase. But it would allow you to continue with the rebase, and then you can just do git stash pop. Bring those unstaged changes back into your working tree. And then you can also, so you can do git stash and then decide you don't want that. So you can just do git stash drop, and just get rid of it. So yeah, it can be quite useful sometimes. Are there any questions on any of that? All good? Okay. So this is just sort of a useful command, rebase onto. Has anyone ever used rebase onto? No? It can be really handy. So it can be, like I said, it can be sort of used instead of cherry picking a load of commits. So cherry pick will, wherever you are, you can give it a list of commits and it'll bring all those commits on top of where you are. But if you've got sort of 20 commits you need to do, you have to copy and paste 20 commit hashes, and you might miss one or mess something up. So rebase onto sort of allows you to avoid that. So if I go into my rebase onto. So here I've got my master branch, which is just on initial commit, and I've got feature 1 and feature 2. Feature 2 branch is based on feature 1. But for example, I may want to push feature 2 live. It doesn't rely on feature 1 at this point. And I may want to push feature 2 live without having to push feature 1 live. So I need to move feature 2 back down onto master. With just a normal rebase, you wouldn't actually be able to do that, because at the minute, if you tried to do git rebase master being checked out in feature 2, it would try and rebase, it would try and take your commits from feature 1 and feature 2 branches, which in this case would do nothing because they're already based on master. So if I do git rebase onto master, feature 1, feature 2. So this is going to rebase all the commits between feature 1 and feature 2 onto master, essentially. So this can be a hash as well, so I could instead give it, I could give it that instead if I wanted to.
So that's going to exclude feature 1's work?
Yes, exactly, yeah. So
that feature 1 is the branch name?
Yes, yeah. So that's pointing to the branch name. So this is the starting point that you want to rebase from, and this is the end point, rebase to, sort of. It's not going to include your from commit. So in this instance, it's going to rebase these two commits onto master. Sorry.
What if so this obviously wouldn't work if feature 2 depended on some work in feature 1?
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Okay. They're distinct.
Yeah. But like I said, it can also be used for cherry picking, essentially.
I see.
Like a long list of commits. So if we look now, feature 2 is based off master, and feature 1 is also based off master. So you've managed to move just those, distinct commits somewhere else. So it's just sort of a handy thing to know. I've used it a couple of times. Right, losing work. So there are ways you can lose work in Git. It's generally quite difficult once you've committed. It's generally quite difficult to actually lose work unless you really try hard to do it. So there's a couple of ways. Not committed yet. So that's probably the highest risk of losing commits if you haven't committed it yet. If it's still unstaged. So you've got git reset hard, git RMF. If you do git checkout past the file, that will revert any changes you've made to it. Just don't ever remove your .git folder. That's just, then you'll lose it. So then in your local, so if you force a branch to a different point in the Git tree, you can lose commits then, essentially. They can be recovered, which we'll go on to in reflog. And there's a couple of other ways. So you can force, in remote, you can force up a branch to a different point, which they'll then potentially lose the commits in that remote branch. If you do git push origin and then a colon and branch name, that's going to delete that branch in the remote. And then these two commands will clear out your reflog, which is the log of anything you've done in your repository. So any checkouts you've done, anything like that, which I'll show you. So we go to reflog. So what I've done, I've just created a branch and it's got some commits on it. That's it. Go check out onto master. Get branch F. So I'm going to force the feature branch down back to here. So now it looks like I've lost feature 4. Because there's no commits, there's nothing referencing it. When you look in your tree, it doesn't appear. But you can use reflog. So this is everything I've done in my repo, essentially. So you can see here, commit 4, feature 4 commit is in reflog still. So I could do so when you're pulling out stuff from reflog, it has sort of a reflog reference or hash, if you like, which is this bit here before the actual description of it. So this was saying that this commit was on the feature branch one behind at one point. Or that is the one action behind what's happened to the feature branch. So I'd committed feature 4 onto there, and then I moved feature. So the most recent action on the feature branch is moving it back one commit, essentially. So if I cherry pick that, you can see I've now got, I wasn't master, so yeah. But it's pulled that commit then back out of the reflog, so you haven't actually lost it. The reflog only, I think it's about 2 months. It tracks changes for. But if you do git prune or git GC, it'll clear it out essentially. But yeah, it's around 2 months that it will keep these changes for. So if you do find that you've lost, or you think you've lost some work, it might just be that it's not got a reference to it anymore, so it looks like it's been lost. but it is still recoverable. Most of the time it is recoverable. If you've committed work, then it's more than likely recoverable than reflog, which is yet another reason for smaller commits. If you wait a couple of days to commit your work and you've got 100 change files, if you accidentally do git checkout dot, it's going to wipe all that out. It's all gone, and there's no way to get it back. So if you commit as you go in small chunks, then it's highly unlikely that you're going to lose work. It's worth doing.
Could you comment on, I guess the natural result of that is going to be that you're going to, for a feature that takes you a week, you're going to have like a fair few commits.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on, rewriting, squashing commits to a single message? Just because, I don't know, I might push something up and I realise, I messed the lint up, I forgot to run the lint, so you know what I mean, and then you end up with this crap in the
I think
message.
potentially squashing like the chore sort of commits, like fixing a lint bug that you've missed, or a semicolon that you've missed or something like that. I think it's fine to squash those, but I think actual work commits where you've actually implemented something, you should keep within the Git history.
So you talk about the Git log and how merges can make it look messy.
Mm-hmm.
I think of the Git log as a story of the code.
Mm-hmm.
So introducing features obviously is showing the story, fixing, that's the only bugs initially, but if you have a Git commit entry that just says fix lint or fix this or various swear words, which obviously that doesn't tell a story.
Yeah.
And so I prefer to rebase that commit in order to squash it into whatever the feature was that it was doing. So your Git commit history is a bit cleaner. The caution with that is if you rewrite history and someone else is also working on that branch, you can screw them over.
Yeah, which is another reason. So if you did get pull in that instance, they're going to reintroduce all your squash commits.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily do it if you've got lots of developers working on it, but if you come to the end of a feature and two of you have been working, you can talk to each other and say, right, I'm going to try and get that now.
Good idea.
And as long as they know that and they haven't got any outstanding changes, then you can promote that. I would never do it on master because master should be the authoritative history, and that can cause problems. But on feature branches, certainly, I'd look at tidying things up.
Yeah, I agree with that. Tidying it, but I think if you keep actual feature commits sort of there, so you can follow. If someone needs to, they can follow the steps that you took to introduce that. Otherwise, if you squash it all down into one commit, it's just going to be one huge commit with all these changes. And there's also, so has anyone used Git bisect before? I haven't actually got a demo for it, but it's sort of, you can use it to find out where a bug was introduced. So you give it you find out when it was last working and when it was first broken, and you give it those two commits, and it will check out halfway in between, and then you tell it whether it's still broken then or whether it's working, and you keep going, and then you eventually narrows it down to one commit where that bug was introduced. So if you've squashed all your commits into one huge one, then it's more than likely that's going to be the one that's going to introduce the bug because it's got all the changes in it. Whereas if you do small commits as you go, if you need to find a bug, then you can easily narrow it down.
So the second question was basically, at the moment, what happens in our sort of Jenkins file is that every time you push to master, it bumps the version of the package JSON and commits that back to Git, and then that's then read by the ping plugin that we have on our services. So you hit /ping, you see the version of the service. So that's the sort of flow. But at the moment, there's no kind of major minor patch versioning. It's just a bumping patch, is it? So how do we make that more sophisticated so that we can hook into the work we're doing in the commit messages, so that potentially we can bump it, we can do an npm bump, minor or major or patch depending on the commit. How do we achieve that?
On my personal point of view, today you bump the major or minor version in your branch, and when it gets merged, it will.
So it's a manual step.
Yeah.
Potentially,
if you think your feature deserves a minor or major bump, that should be part of it. I think I've not tried this, and you might have to be careful that you're not having issues with other features going in behind, but that comes back to rebasing into master.
But then you still have the issue that when it runs on Jenkins, it will do a patch.
Yeah, but you'll get version 1.0.0 becomes 1.0.1. It's still got the major increment. It's not perfect, but I think that will give you what you need today. you could do something more sophisticated by analysing the commit message and deciding whether you do.
Well, I was going to say potentially you could,
patch or
you
NPM
could look at
patch.
the branch name. So if it's got fix slash, it should be a patch. If it's got feature slash, it should be minor. Then any major bugs you could do as a manual process, because that's like a breaking change.
I think the reason why Dana, who used to be here, most of you don't know him, but he was here a year ago, and he set up a something in the old stack which would literally scan commit history and would do either release, I don't know, he did various things, but he had something clever that basically.
And if we could agree that a branch.
He used to say you must squash your commit messages. He was like, he's quite aggressive actually, particularly on that issue.
Fanatical, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you know, he's a clever guy. But you know, he was. That's why he said you must squash it because it made his code work.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
If you didn't squash it, then it didn't. Yeah.
And if we could agree the process for when we implement patch minor and major, then we could automate that. So if we said it, like you say, if you said if the branch was feature slash, and when we merge that, it increments a minor. If it's a fix, then it increments a patch. You could do something along those lines.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to keep our. Because we're sort of using the SEM format at the minute, but not actually
really,
adhering to it.
I mean, I think it's worth just generally being aware that we should be looking at major and minor version numbers if we are doing breaking changes or big features. But if we want to automate it, we can. I just don't know how high a priority it is. Maybe it might not be. Probably didn't know.
He looks like he's interested.
So that is pretty much it. So there's so many resources there. This Git book is well worth a read. It walks you through sort of how to get started from the basics to branching. It's got loads of stuff in there. It's really, really handy. It's got loads of examples as well as you go through. So definitely if you're interested, I'll give that a read through. Also if you're interested about branching and rebasing and merging and all that, there's a sort of an interactive site you can use. So this will walk you through, and I'll eventually get there. Let's close that. But it'll walk you through effectively. It'll tell you, it'll say you get your Git tree to look like this. If it works. But in the later ones, so I think because it's an introduction, in the later ones it will say get your Git tree to look like this, and this is what it looks like now, and you actually type in the commands as you go. It will show you what's actually going on as you do things. So if you're not, if you want to practice a bit more and you don't want to like mess up any of our repos, or you don't want to create your own or whatever, it's a really good way to actually have a practice and just see what happens. And you sort of an objective to hit. I might be sure goal. Yeah. So that's what it wants it to look like. So in this case, all you have to do is do 2 commits, and it will it'll be a success. Yeah, I mean it's got loads of different sort of levels as you go along, so yeah, it's quite good. This is the Git message format, which sort of gives a bit more detail on some examples, and so message footer, like I say, that's where you can add in the extra detail, or the body, sorry, if you need to.
Quick question on this. There's a very rare scenario which I always struggle with when fitting into this convention, is when I want to push up changes for someone else to have a look, potentially at a bug, or I'm midway through any of those potential things, midway through a feature or test or trial. Do you guys commit those messages ever? Like, is that a scenario that other people run into at any point? Or?
I'll commit them, push them, then there's this magic command called rebase that allows me to rename it.
Yeah, so I mean that potentially is
amend,
a way to squash. If you're doing a temporary commit, and then you've got another commit after that, which actually you fully implements the feature, you can squash those 2 down into one.
Yeah, I guess that's
commit.
the solution.
Yeah.
Never thought I'd hear that. Must be Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does any other questions or? anything I didn't cover? I wasn't really sure what level to sort of go in at.
A few questions. I'm not very comfortable with rebase because I was always afraid of rewriting history and pointing my branch to a different commit that I wasn't aware I'm going to do that. So the moment I do a git pull, I branch to a feature branch, then push that branch up and submit a PR. Should I change this PR? Because I've seen some chat on our hip chat channels that we should do rebases instead of merges, but I'm not sure on how to do those.
So if you have a feature branch that comes off and then other commits have happened on master, say, if you raised a PR at that point and merged, then that's how you get the long sort of git tree going around to merge it back in. I would say if it hasn't yet been approved in our pull request sort of process, you should rebase it onto master.
Before submitting the PR?
Oh, definitely. If you haven't submitted the PR, I'll definitely say rebase your branch onto master.
Okay.
You should really try to do that before you create your PR. Really try to make sure you're as close to possible to master, and then create your PR then. Yeah.
Because I guess the tests might have run.
You want to make sure the testing, the code is going to get merged into, not just okay.
Yeah. So potentially, what can happen is if you raise a PR, it takes a while to get approved, and in that time, commits have happened on master. It's potentially not worthwhile rebasing at that point because then you have to go through the build process in Jenkins and the approval process of people reviewing your PR again.
I think it's a judgment call, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're not going to get your PR in because you keep rebasing it and having to get approvals again, then
it's not worth it.
You might decide to take a risk and merge it.
Yeah. So it's not always avoidable, but I'd say definitely before, if you haven't committed, like pushed or raised the PR yet, I'll definitely rebase it onto master or the mainline branch.
Right.
About your nervousness about rebasing, so branches are really cheap in Git, so if you've got a feature branch and you wanted to have a go at rebasing, you can always branch that, do your rebasing in the branch, and then you can get out to that branch, which is maybe a little bit easier than going through the Git ref history and trying to pick out the old commits. So you can play around with it without kind of affecting stuff. And then you can always push that branch up if you're happy with it, or go back to your original and do it again. So you can kind of play around with it. I mean, quite safe.
What I usually do, I pull the latest of master, branch out to my own branch, do the work, submit a PR for that, and it gets pushed back to master.
Yeah, I mean, the quick changes, that's all you're doing to worry about. It's just more if you like with squashing commits and stuff like that, and you're afraid to do it because you're not quite sure what you may end up with.
Yeah, I mean, like Dave said, the advantage of rebase, well, an advantage of it is because it copies your commits, your original commits are still there. And like Dave said, so you have a feature branch and you just create a temp feature branch just to test your rebase out on. You rebase that and it copies the commits. Your original commits are still there with your feature branch pointing to them, so you can still see them. So you won't lose any work. It just allows you, you can play with it and see what happens.
While you're exploring how this stuff works, it might be worth doing is to get familiar with it. And you've still got the safety net there, branch without having to go through all these random Git commits with the left hand.
Oh yeah, I mean what you could also do is keep a reference of the latest commit hash on your feature branch. So when you rebase, if it goes wrong, you can check out back to that commit hash and it'll appear again in your Git tree.
You also have a copy on the origin, so you can just check out the origin feature branch as well if you messed up your local one.
That's assuming you pushed it.
Yeah. Yes.
So I mean, the only thing I'd add is that Git is extremely powerful. There's an awful lot to it, and even I probably only use like 10% of what it can do. So the tutorials you just pointed through, I think it's well worth if you're not familiar with those features. Just playing around with it, see what it can do. You may choose not to do it, to use those features. You may choose never to squash your commits, but at least you kind of understand what goes on and what the options are.
Yeah.
I also think it's worth saying if anyone is using an IDE to manage their Git, really use the command line because it's not too difficult to use, and it gets you into it and gets you comfortable with Git. Because when you're using a GUI, you're maybe not too sure what's actually going on.
Yeah, it hides a lot of the.
Never used the GUI for Git. So
like I said, this I've got this gist up for some like helpful aliases if you do want to use the command line. The git lg one's really handy because the normal git log is not all that helpful to actually see what's going on, whereas the git lg is much better visually represented to actually see what's going on. It sort of matches. So if you look at the commits in Bitbucket, this would sort of match what you get in that.
I think it's good to do both for myself in terms of the command line. And so what I do is if I'm doing a merge of a rebase that's failed, I'm not going to do it in Vim or whatever. I'm personally not good enough for that, so VS Code
I quite often look.
it's much more powerful.
I quite often look a bit bucket against my branch and I want to kind of see where things are. That's quite a useful little UI. But
You can still use IDs, merges and conflicts.
Yeah, that's the key, the best thing. Yeah.
KDIV 3 is very powerful.
Okay.
WebStorm.
I mean, it'd be really great to get all this in the engineering handbook, I think.
Yeah,
Also,
I'm more than happy.
that'd be really good. And I think, I was thinking of coming up with a list of things we should like look at in PRs. The usual stuff like OWASP type standards. Because I had a meeting yesterday and they were asking what we look for. And it'd be good to get on paper. Like these are the things we look for. Because otherwise PRs become stylistic. But do you think that we should be? As one of the things we look for is actually looking at the commit history and sort of saying, oh, you've got 10 chore messages here, they could be squashed. And
Yeah, potentially it could be worthwhile doing if it gets.
is that great? What we're doing at the moment is sufficient, but that sounds to me like that. If we want to get to great, that's the sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, like Dave said earlier, it's way more useful having actual feature commits rather than I'll fix lint. That's it's not telling you anything.
I don't know, well actually going by the standard there, that would be a chore commit, and probably be an idea to actually leave in the history just so that you can see, oh it's a chore, but actually follow the standard there for what the meaning of that prefix is.
But yeah, I mean, I suppose, so if you've got a PR that's got 15 chore commits because you forgot to run a unit test or run lint, then that's not that helpful. When you're going back through your code and looking for it, it's not that useful to know that someone had to fix lint 15 times. It's more useful to know what feature they implemented. The linting really is more for Jenkins will run it to make sure that you've adhered to our standards.
The point I make is actually going by that Karma reference, they would still be either feature commits or should be merged into the feature commits. Whereas a chore commit something that's say changing the build tooling or.
I mean potentially we don't. If you have a chore commit, that's something that should be squashed. We could potentially say that.
I don't think there's a hard and fast rule for any of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of it's preference, some of it's you've got to take a judgment call at the time. So to say you always squash your chore commits, that might not be accurate because sometimes you're doing chores that are not specifically related to the feature you've just added. You could be doing some tidy up of code that already existed, stuff like that.
We don't know any.
In config vars, services.
Yeah.
The engine repo should be one commit.
On the Docker branch.
So just like I said, just think of it as a story. If you think it's useful, keep it in. If you think it's just noise, then you might look at squashing it.
I think the conclusion for me is, you don't have to do it this way, but if you don't, you will get fired.
So when you notice someone's commits go downhill, when you think they're looking for another job. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, good.